Cheers, guys. Epix 911, this is VR Roundup, episode 20, if you can believe it, guys. The format changed just a couple of months ago. Time, she is absolutely flying. It is also Gamin' Friday, and I know here, the Epix household, we are going to be doing, I think it's our third week of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. It's been an absolute blast playing that with the family. Remember, guys, the rules for Gamin' Friday are, there are no rules. It can be bad food, great music, board games, video games. It doesn't matter. It's just an awesome way to bring family and friends together. And sure as hell beats sitting around listening to your, brother-in-law Jack talk about people at work as if you know them or care by name. Yeah, no, give me Gamin' Friday. With that said, guys, let's dive into the news, starting with the Zed Mini, which is a small augmented reality camera. It's currently in development kit status. You fix this to the front of your HMD. It supports Vive or Rift. It's being developed by a company called Stereo Labs. And one of the big strengths of this device, guys, 110-degree field of view. That puts it well ahead of most other augmented reality devices. Take the Microsoft HoloLens, for example, 35-degree field of view only. So this thing about 3 times the field of view. Absolutely amazing, and it puts it right on par, really, with the Vive and the Rift. It also utilizes its external stereo 3D cameras to provide inside-out tracking, so you're not limited to your Vive's lighthouse tracking or the Rift camera tracking, which is, of course, outside-in tracking. As a result, basically, you put your HMD on anywhere within the house, which is obviously an advantage right there. Currently, the development kit can be ordered via the Stereo Labs website. Price isn't cheap though, guys. $449 US. Little bit rich for my blood. I could see half of that, maybe 2/3. $449, a little bit too much in Steepsville for this cheap Dutchman. But hey, next up, Magic Leap, finally releasing more than just more marketing. So Magic Leap company, founded by Roni Abovitz way back in 2011, they have raised to date $1.9 billion. Not million, billion. That's a hell of a lot in funding. However, with that money for the last 6 years, all we have received are descriptions and very, very vague videos of a promised technology. Nothing so far has come to fruition. Well, finally, we've got a product. They're calling it the Creator Edition. They say it's going to launch in 2018, along with an SDK, software development kit. This is how it's described. Goggles attached by a wire to a disc-shaped external computer. They're dubbing this the Light Pack. You hang it off your belt, carry it with you, so really a portable CPU. It's also got a handheld controller that resembles a touch-sensitive remote control. The puck doing most of the processing, some of it also done by the headset. It can receive a variety of inputs via voice, gesture, head positioning, even eye tracking. And what I love is its persistent digital objects onto the physical environment system that it has. For example, if you place a virtual TV or console, let's say on the wall over a fireplace, that's in your home, your actual fireplace mantle. You return 2, 3, 4 weeks later, it remembers that you placed that there and you will see it there. So what a fantastic way to create virtual rooms that, maybe you could put game achievements in, all kinds of uses for this. Really, really cool. $1.9 billion worth of cool, that's probably up for debate, but at least we've got a bit more information than we've received in the past and some kind of future activity rough dates. Then next, the Voices of VR podcast. I've been a fan of Kent Bai's podcast over on Road to VR for a hell of a long time now, probably approaching, I guess, about 2 years. He deals with some really interesting topics and generally does it at a high level. And what I like about it is it's not necessarily translated to the layman. So in other words, he will broach, technical topics and not dumb them down. So if you're into things at a real high technical level, definitely give these podcasts a shot. Not for everybody, for example. There's topics that I get lost on quite frequently. But with that said, lots of interesting stuff. Well, today's edition deals with Jaron Lanier. He, of course, founder, CEO of VPL Research Inc., which was a famous company, started back up in 1984 and really led to that first VR revolution that ultimately in the 90s sputtered and died, as did his company, but not before developing a lot of stuff that really would become norm this time around. For example, they had their own virtual reality head-mounted display with tracking, and get this name, they called it the iPhone. Not I as in apples, but I as in eyeball. Still kind of cool, kind of strange coincidence. Haptic gloves, motion capture suits, 3D audio, cutting-edge virtual programming languages, all of that was included in their research. Kent Bye's podcast is essentially focusing on Lanier's memoir. He's written this. It's called Dawn of the New Everything. Just a really, really interesting podcast and a memoir that I'm now going to try to get my hands on. And the reason is he's a bit of an eccentric guy, Lanier, more of a Burning Man type guy than a Silicon Valley type founder, CEO, if that makes sense. He's also not a big fan of advertising-driven business models, Facebook, Google, Twitter, etc. All in all, a good podcast. Then we've got Pimax's 5K and 8K VR headsets still slated to release to early backers starting next month. If you can believe it, the time is finally approaching. Adding to this, however, some really good news. They've just finished a Series A funding round to the tune of $15 million. No word yet on if they're going to use any of that funding to add last-minute improvements to the devices, but it should put any fears that backers have to rest in terms of them being able to get product out. That is not a bad injection of investment to ensure that, even if it's a rougher launch, people should be getting their units. Next up, one of my favorite games of Carnage, Arizona Sunshine, which is essentially Carnage incarnate, has an update, a DLC. It's their third DLC to date that's going to be bringing two-handed weapons to the game. So rifles, ARs, submachine guns. No firm date, only that it's coming, but 13 new weapons in all that are going to be two-handed. And then this game, Sairento, we've seen quite a bit of activity with this game. It's really been heating up the last few months as they get close to launch. One of the things that they've worked on compared to when I first played it is really balancing and giving you the feel of being a ninja. And I love what VR Focus says about it, that currently ninja video games are basically either of two extremes. Either they're very stealth-based or they're all-out arcade. There hasn't been much in the middle. That's the formula they say Sairento gets almost perfect. For example, the game gets pacing when it comes to distances between you and your enemies, varied ways to bring your enemy closer or you to your enemy that all seem to work regardless of distance and do so in a way that feels really ninja. So again, the game supposed to launch within the next few months. And then I want to end things, guys, with Google Earth VR. This is probably one of my favorite applications. When I talk about my favorite games a lot, in terms of applications that aren't games, this is probably near the top. Definitely the top 3. I did a video on it. It was a quick look when it first launched, and I raved about it, but I did point out one of its biggest deficiencies, which was that they didn't include Street View. Well, fast forward, or rather rewind, I guess, quite a few months ago now, they added Street View, but it was static Street View. Nonetheless, it added an important feature with VR, the ability to look around at street level in 360 degrees. Huge. So I did a video on it, was editing it when they came out finally with street views that you can navigate in an update yesterday. So I scratched that old video, filmed a new one, process of editing that. I should release it either before you guys see this video or after, but in hindsight now or on the spot, I'll probably do it for right after so that it flows a little bit better. But if you're looking for an application, guys, to introduce people to VR, and I get asked that question a lot, Epics, you know, I've got family members or friends, grandparents, whatever, they're not gamers. What is the best app to introduce them to VR? And this is the one I point to, Google Earth. Hands down. And the reason is even the crappiest memories that a person has, right? The crappiest upbringing, there's usually a handful of pretty decent memories. And those are associated with places, right? Anniversaries, first jobs, first house, first vacation, wherever, there's a place usually associated with that. With Google Earth VR, you can bring that person there. So maybe your granddad did an awesome Asian tour when he was a kid, right? Or served in the military. Bring him there. Bring your grandma to wherever, her first vacation, right? It is just super powerful for that. And with Street View, takes it to the absolute next level. So check out that video. It's just those updates, they were key, sorely needed, and with it, venture to say probably one of the best VR apps outside of gaming, period. So there you have it. And with that said, guys, I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and definitely, because I said it at the outset, the only rules for Gaming Friday, there are no rules. So have a fantastic one. Enjoy the weekend. And guys, we will catch you again for the Tuesday episode. As always, cheers.